Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this ambush stream, review, rant, whatever you want to call it, regarding Netflix's three-body problem. Yes, I'll be talking about the Netflix version, not the Chinese version. And as a predicate to everything else, no, I have not read the books. I'm sure they are much, much better than the Netflix version that I watched. But so my experience and my knowledge will only go so far as what is presented in the Netflix version of the story. And the issues I take with its storytelling abilities. But before I get to that, who's joining me on this very short notice ambush stream? Because I just found myself with some extra wake-up time tonight. Kiro Soldier, good evening. Derek LaRue, thank you so much, Derek, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Really do appreciate it. That's very, very generous of you. Hope you're having a good evening and hope you enjoy my my musings. And also, thank you so much, Kiro Soldier, as well. Appreciate it. It's very nice of you. Hope you're having a good evening. Who else is here? Funtime Bats, good evening. Best Remy, good evening. Keldrig, good evening. JB, good evening. Cynic, good evening. Good evening to you. Anybody else that I missed? I don't think I did. And anybody who is lurking or in the future. Okay, so this is not going to be a 100% review of the series. I'm not going to go episode by episode. I've got a list of complaints. If you haven't seen the series, probably most of this might not make any sense. I'll try to give as much context as I can, but if you have watched the series, maybe you share some of my perspective. I don't know, or maybe you don't. Either way, I just had to get this stuff off my chest. So again, I am just looking at the three-body problem as presented by Netflix and Benioff and Weiss. Yes, the two men who destroyed Game of Thrones at the end of the entire run. They're in charge of this sucker. And I never watched Game of Thrones. I know. I think I have to turn in my nerd card. But I empathize with all Game of Thrones fans when it came down to how their beloved series was ended and how it was handled by these two professionals. Anyway, so what is the three-body problem about? Well, it is about a slow-running, quasi-realistic and yet not realistic alien invasion, oncoming alien invasion. But we're starting out very early on in the process because the aliens are invading by invitation. So our story effectively begins during the, I know there's a better phrase for it, but the communist revolution in China back in the 50s or the 60s or whatever. I know, I'm not a history major, I'm an English major. Anyway, our main character, whose name I can't pronounce, but who is played in her later years by the same woman who played Keiko O'Brien from Star Trek, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, and so on. I know I'm terrible with names on their actors' names as well. Anyway, as a young girl, she watched her father being turned into a joke because he was an intellectual, and the communist mob ended up killing him, and now she's all dour and depressed, and, you know, admittedly and sort of empathetically, she's not a very big fan of society, humankind, and so on at that point. And yet she is a brilliant physicist, and that'll become relevant shortly. But first, before I miss out on this, Funtime Bats, thank you so much. Saw you ask for the secret word and honestly tried to post a Hail Hydra gif. Alas, it won't to be. Funtime Bats, is that you? So Funtime Bats is talking about the Discord. Somebody joined the Discord and they didn't say the secret word. So I'm not sure if they're the, oh, here we go. Oh, okay. I see it now. Okay. There we go. It's been fixed. Lucatorix, you are now a member of the Discord. Thank you, Funtime Bats. Yeah, the secret word. I got to make sure. You never know when it's a bot. Thank you, Funtime. Appreciate it. So yes, our physicist communist victim, watching her father be killed, is then recruited into a massive scientific program, which deals with a giant radio telescope on the top of a mountain where the Chinese are attempting to create better communication abilities or something or other. And in the course of this, we have a little bit of a man stealing a woman's work in the process of our brilliant scientist interacting with some of her coworkers. But the main gist of the thing is that this radio telescope it picks up the famous wow signal from, I believe, 1977 or something like that. There's about somewhere in that neighborhood. And through this wow signal, our hero deduces that the signal actually was bounced off the sun in getting to them on this mountaintop. And she thought, we can bounce signals off the sun and they will travel at faster speeds than if we send them just straight out into space. That somehow the sun is a sort of mirror or some kind of, slingshot for radio signals. Now, I, being an English major, have absolutely no idea if that is true or not on a scientific level. It seems bizarre to me that aiming a radio signal at the sun will somehow magnify it and speed it up. But that's the theory within this show and how they're telling it. Is that accurate to the books? I don't know. Again, just looking at the Netflix series. Anyway, so she decides to respond to this wow signal on the assumption that it is a signal from an alien race. Except it is a signal from an alien race because somehow she was able to decipher it as a signal from an alien race. And so she communicates with this, whoever it is, essentially saying, hey, you should come here and take us over because we can't help ourselves. We're terrible. Human beings are terrible. You should come here and take us over. This one lady decides for the entire human race that we're not worth the time and that they're better than us because they sent a radio signal out. And she's given up on humanity. Now, just keep that in mind. This is a primary character of the show. All right, and then we have to jump ahead to the modern times. And in the modern times, we have all these characters that are all centered around one little group of friends and associates in the scientific community in the United Kingdom. I don't remember all their names, but I do remember a couple of them. You have Augie, or I think Augustine, who is a absolute total expert in micro nanofibers. And then you have Jin, who is a absolute total expert in physics or something. And then you have Saul, who's a total absolute expert in physics or something. Then you have Wilbur, who's a total and absolute expert in physics and stuff. Anyway, you have all these guys, mostly women, who are physicists, and the women are primarily in charge of everything, and they're deferred to by everybody else because, well, you know, that's the modern day. Anyway, around the world, suddenly all these very important, very smart scientists start, for the sake of YouTube, I will say they are subtracting themselves from the equation of life. How's that? Just all of a sudden, out of the blue, they just all decide to start erasing themselves from the scientific conversation. And there is a detective. I'm just going to call him Wong because it's the guy who plays Wong from the Marvel Universe, who is, I'm going to call him Detective Wong. Detective Wong is investigating this for some super secret government agency because it's all very, very strange. They're sort of like the X-Files, I suppose, in the UK. But anyway, so Detective Wong is trying to look into why all these scientists are removing themselves. And in that same time, Augustine, our sort of lead character, except the lead character of this show kind of changes depending on the episode. She starts seeing numbers in front of her eyes. She sees a countdown. She sees a countdown in front of her eyes. And all these other scientists, before they decided to delete themselves, were also reporting or recording the fact that they were seeing numbers appear before their eyes. And there were only two ways to stop these numbers. The numbers stop the numbers. The only two ways were to, again, delete yourself, or secondarily, if they suddenly stopped researching what they were researching, the numbers would disappear. If they stopped looking into their research, if they stopped developing their new technology, suddenly the numbers would disappear and nothing would happen to them, seemingly. It's very bizarre. It's like, what? What's going on? Huh? What? Huh? Very mysterious. And so I'm thinking, now remember, I have absolutely no foreknowledge of the story of the book series or any of this. All I know is that it's science fiction, and I had a sort of backwise notion that it had something to do with other intelligences, alien intelligence, but that's about it. So I'm starting to think about this. I'm thinking, okay, well, somehow, I don't know how, the aliens are sort of blackmailing the scientists into stopping their scientific progress in order to facilitate their eventual invasion, right? Because if they can stunt scientific progress before they show up, then Earth will be at a disadvantage in defending themselves against their invasion. Like, okay, well, that I guess that makes a kind of sense, but I just didn't understand what was the mechanism by which that they were putting numbers onto people's eyeballs, from their own inside their own vision. I was like, what? And so I was like, okay, well, that's weird. And then at the same time that this is happening, we have a mystery girl. A mystery girl starts showing up and starts talking to individual characters and sort of guiding them or warning them or, passively threatening them with bad things to happen if they continue doing their work or looking into this, that, or the other. And this mystery girl, she just happens to not be picked up on cameras. She's functionally invisible somehow. And so she's just kind of wandering around. So we got that little mystery, like, okay, so the scientists are all seeing countdowns in their eyes unless they stop developing their research. And you got this mystery girl going around who seems really threatening and everything, but she's kind of a ghost, or she's a figment, or what is she? And then on top of that, some of these scientists. Bridget. Yes, I forgot about the snack guy. Yes, Benioff and Weiss's connection back to Game of Thrones. An actor who I've seen in several different places. I don't know his name, but he's a sort of jolly, sort of rotund man who's very pleasant in his attitude and everything with a British accent. He plays one of the physicist friends who's also a physicist and brilliant, except we don't know exactly what he does. But he decided to go into snack foods, and he's a multimillionaire. So he's I don't know, the Danny Rand of the group, except that he's practically useless except for comic relief, sort of. Anyway, one of our main scientist ladies at the very beginning of the show, she deletes herself. She's one of the scientists that decides to delete herself. And she was connected emotionally to this very core group of our main characters. She was like a best friend. We only get to see her for like 3 minutes or something in the first episode, but she is pivotal to everything that happens afterwards because everybody's so broken up and so out of sorts because of this girl. And honestly, over the course of a couple of episodes, I forgot she existed because her hairstyle and her appearance are so similar to the main character, Augie, that I kind of got them mixed up in places when they were referring one to the other by pictures. But anyway, so this one scientist offs herself, and amongst her things that she leaves behind is found this cool-looking cyber silver headset thing, right? It looks like what Mark Zuckerberg wanted his metaverse headset to look like. Anyway, Jin, one of our physicist girls, she puts it on and suddenly she's transported to a 100% realistic VR game. And she's in period clothing and she's in this vast space and she's approached by these two characters that are sort of like the quest givers for the thing. And they're like, you must help us. You must help us. And this game is another thread in this entire story. It's like, oh, so we got numbers on scientists' eyes, discouraging them from developing their science. We've got mystery girl who's invisible to cameras, and we have a VR game that is so realistic you can't tell the difference from real life. Like, where is all this stuff coming from? Don't know. But anyway, so she goes through this game, and eventually our snack guy, what was his name? Jerry or Jimmy or something? Anyway, he gets one as well. These things just show up in their homes, these little headsets. So somebody's breaking into their homes and planting these headsets in there so they can all join the game. And what is the purpose of this game? Well, this game, as they go through several different iterations and attempts at playing the game, is that they are there to conceivably solve a problem. There is this world that is consistently being ravaged by some natural disaster that happens on a regular basis. And the world keeps getting completely ravaged. They're completely turned back the clock on everything they developed. Everybody goes into kind of this hibernation thing, or they're just outright destroyed. And so the point of the game is to find out what is happening, why it's happening, and how to solve for this problem, to save the world. And so this goes over several episodes, but the problem ends up being that this world that they're virtually transported to is a planet that exists in a 3-star system. That's where the 3-body problem comes in, right? Celestial bodies, 3 bodies. So this one planet is cycling through and going around by gravitational counterwells and things, this almost random pattern of either circling one sun for a while or then wobbling between all 3 for a time. And there's no way particularly to tell how long there's going to be a period of stability before there's another period of instability, and then the suns get too close or whatever, and the gravitational pulls all destroy everything. And so the point of the game is to both understand the problem, identify the problem, and then try to solve for the problem, or at least try to figure out when is there going to be a safe period of time of enough length that people could conceivably rebuild or try to do something about it or create shelters or whatever. And so as the story goes on, Jin and Snack Guy eventually team up in this game, and Snack Guy doesn't really do anything. He's just there. Jin solves all the problems because you wouldn't want to have a man be smarter than a girl, I guess, in this or something. In fact, most of the men in this story, except for about 2 characters, are practically pointless and useless to what's going on. They're just kind of there until they're needed. I noticed that. Maybe I'm just oversensitive at this point by DEI indoctrination, but it felt that way. Anyway, they discover that there is no real solution to this problem, right? You can't get the planet to move outside of this cycle. It's essentially a journey to find out that you have a problem that has no real solution. The only solution is to leave, is to hope for a time when the planet is going to be in enough of a stable orbit that the civilization can conceivably build themselves up to effectively leave the planet. And that's it. Okay, so I'm thinking while I'm watching this, what is the point of the game? Okay, so it's specifically being delivered to these scientists, these physicists, even though Snack Guy isn't really an active physicist anymore. He was, and now he's a snack guy. Anyway, I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be some kind of empathize with us, understand our problem, right? Because it's not a problem that they can solve. They reach that conclusion. It's not a problem that they can solve. They can't solve for the planet. They can't solve for the rotation of the suns. They can only solve for how to help the civilization survive, or how to see that the civilization being portrayed here has no other choice but to survive and leave their planet for a new planet. And I'm like, okay, so they're trying to convince these top minds in the world that what the aliens are doing is a matter of necessity, not one of conquest, not one of threat. And they're trying to prove that in showing them the problem that they dealt with, and therefore they're going to disseminate this information and make humanity more, I don't know, accepting of their motivations ahead of their arrival. I'm thinking, okay. And honestly, this is what I'm thinking. I'm trying to solve this as I'm going. I'm a problem solver like that. I'm trying to think, okay, why would they do this? Well, at the same time all of this is going on, there is an organization that is effectively a Cthulhu cult for these aliens that are eventually given the name the San-Ti, which I guess is some kind of derivative Chinese translation of 3-body problem or 3 suns or something. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly what it was. And this secret cult has been built up over the last several decades by our total and absolute betrayer of humanity, Keiko O'Brien. I'll just call her Keiko O'Brien. And Jonathan Pryce. I'm just going to call him Jonathan Pryce. I think his name is like Evan Evans or something. But anyway, Keiko O'Brien and Jonathan Pryce have known each other since China, because Keiko O'Brien one time had to go out and get some guy off their land, and it happened to be a young version of Jonathan Pryce. and they met, and they kind of found, connection with each other, and they eventually really connected with each other and made a daughter, which was the girl that offed herself at the beginning of the series. But anyway, that's all kind of neither here nor there. Anyway, Jonathan Pryce eventually becomes a multi-billionaire by inheriting his father's oil company, and then uses his money to create a floating temple, effectively, a floating ark of all these cult followers of the aliens, which they simply call their lord. And it's a real lord. It's not a fake lord. And their lord knows everything, sees everything, can do anything. How does it know everything, see everything, and do everything? I'll get to that momentarily. But first, thank you, Keeverdam, for the hiya, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Whoa, wee. Whoa, whoa.
And there's an understated tailed featured Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Keeverdam. Appreciate it. Also, Keeverdam's arrival reminds me of what I put at the top of the chat box and have, again, forgotten to mention. I got a donation link up there for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of America. Please consider donating there if you have a couple of extra bucks. If you can't donate, that's fine, but please do think about sharing that out on social media. I'd appreciate it. My family is now currently dealing with my father, having been, dealing with, it is you know what I mean, having been diagnosed with leukemia. I've had at least one other friend that I know for sure that died of leukemia. And so appreciate your consideration in that fact. Okay, so this cult on this boat, it is arranging for the delivery of these headsets. It's also connected to Mystery Girl, who also turns out to be a super-powered, super-strength assassin later. It's all very bizarre. But either way, their lord is someone that they're actually talking to. Jonathan Pryce can talk to the aliens. He has a direct line to the aliens to speak to them. Somehow. Because the aliens sent them at some point some kind of computer program or some kind of plans or some kind of schematics over this secret radio signal that only they can receive and detect somehow. And now they have a direct line to the voice of the aliens. And Jonathan Pryce, as far as I can tell, for the last several decades, has been having little, fireside chat times and story times with the Lord, the aliens, reading them stories like fairy tales and things and so on, and sort of educating them on different aspects of humanity. Okay, so we have the numbers on people's eyes, we have the VR game, and we have the cult. And all of these things are operating at the same time in the course of this. All right, so what happens? What is the big breaking point of all of this? Aside from them discovering that, these aliens have a impossible to solve problem of their existence, and now that they have to leave the planet, they must be coming here, and they're quasi-benevolent or anything. Well, our scientists who have been playing this VR game, well, then they are invited to meet the cult in real life and join the cult in real life. Because why? Don't know. Because if the scientists are being blackmailed to stop developing their science, is it now that they're just going to try to make these guys join them so they'll put their scientific efforts to the aliens' benefit? And if so, why were they making all the scientists delete themselves? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But okay, anyway, so those scientists that did get the headset and the VR thing and eventually get to level 3 or 4 or whatever it was, and then suddenly they earn an invitation to this big it's a rave. It's sort of a cocktail rave. Lady shows up at the cocktail rave. But of course, before this, she's been intercepted by the X-Files guy and Detective Wong. And Detective Wong and his boss, really cool British guy, who I think was also in Game of Thrones, and I forget his name, but he's got an awesome voice. Anyway, they've been watching all this activity the whole time. They're suspicious about all these individuals. They know more than they're supposed to know. And they try to get Jin, the one scientist in the group that finished the game and also got invited, to join their ranks and join in on this. Okay, so backing up momentarily. Here's the breaking point. And here's where things went completely bug nuts for me. Okay. I'm still trying to get all these threads together and try to figure out, okay, what is going on? Why are people doing this? What is the ultimate point? Jonathan Pryce is having a conversation with the Lord, i.e. the aliens, and he's reading them the story of Little Red Riding Hood. And he gets to the point where Grandma, aka the wolf, is meeting Little Red Riding Hood, and Little Red Riding Hood says, "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have." And then the aliens and Jonathan Pryce start having a conversation about the logic of what the wolf is doing. And Jonathan Pryce is like, well, the wolf is pretending to be the grandmother in order to lure Little Red Riding Hood into a trap. And the alien's like, I don't understand. What do you mean pretending? And I'm paraphrasing here. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, he's lying in order to, deceive and manipulate, Little Red Riding Hood. What is lying? And I'm sitting there as I'm listening to this. I'm like, wait a second. Super intelligent spacefaring aliens have been talking to Jonathan Pryce for conceivably many years at this point, at least. And the concept of deception either does not exist in their society or has never occurred to them in the course of any other conversation that Jonathan Pryce has ever had with any of these aliens before. What? And then the aliens, once they start to understand the concept of lying, and once they understand that humans sometimes communicate in metaphor or are capable of simple deception for their own benefit or conceivably for someone else's, simply the fact that humans can lie, the aliens suddenly say, "We understand lying now. We are afraid of you." And they stop talking to Jonathan Pryce. They go radio silent. Jonathan Pryce starts freaking out. It's like, "I didn't mean to offend you, my lord. What is going on?" And I'm sitting there as the audience member going like, this makes no sense. What are you talking about? The idea that a super intelligent species of three-dimensional beings, we're not talking about throughout the course of this thing, they keep talking about like extra dimensions and this, that, and the other. No, these aliens are three-dimensional, on the temporal plane beings. Whether or not they communicate through pure thought or something else is beside the point. The idea that deception has never occurred to them, the concept simply doesn't exist, makes no sense. And you know why it makes no sense? Because the aliens have been lying the entire time. They've been deceiving the entire time. Their true purpose, their true resources, and everything else from everybody. It just... Anyway, so back at the rave, Keiko O'Brien shows up, and she's there to give some big speech. And then the X-Files team shows up and either arrests or blows away half of the population there, even though everybody there, as far as we know, are simply innocent scientists. There's a couple of bodyguard guys there and things, but the majority of the crowd is just innocent scientists that have been led and duped into this thing. And so it's just like, okay, so what? Anyway, our scientist Jin, she survives all the breakout and everything, and so now she's effectively recruited into the X-Files to work against the aliens. And so I started thinking, okay, what is the point of the game? Right? The aliens don't need humans. Right? They're willing to cut off communication with those that are loyal to them on the sudden revelation of lying, which doesn't make any sense. But what was the cult supposed to do? Pave the way for the aliens to arrive? Because the aliens are going to take 400 years to get here. 400 years by the speed that they're going through the light and everything else. So in 400 years, humans are not going to notice or have any idea that their scientific progress has been stunted by numbers or something. And it also operates on the premise that a single scientist stopping work on a thing means that that thing will not be developed ever again. That's how this world works. Because Augie stops working on her nanofiber project, nanofibers will never be worked on by anybody else ever again, and nobody else could pick up the ball to work on nanofibers. It just stops. Right. Okay. And before I go any further, thank you, M4 Sherman. Very generous of you. Thank you so much. Most of this show makes no sense, from shooting radio waves at the sun to make them go faster. I talked about that earlier. And aliens not understanding what lying means while watching so many humans. This show hurts my head. Yes. Yes, I haven't gotten to the part of where they're watching everybody yet, because these aliens are effectively omnipotent and practically omniscient. But we'll get there momentarily. So, if the aliens can see everything, right, why do they need to do away with scientists? If they can put numbers onto the eyeballs of scientists, why not just poke something in their brain and make them go catatonic? Why scare them? What's the point of putting a countdown in front of their eyes? What does the countdown even mean? I don't know. But anyway, so they use this super duper VR headset to try to recruit scientists into being sympathetic with them in some instances, but then they're offing the scientists on the other side of the equation for reasons we don't know. And then here's the big thing. And again, I'm jumping over a bunch of stuff here because most of this series deals with some human drama that is 100% irrelevant. 100% irrelevant. The most irrelevant character in the whole show so far, unless they make him somehow relevant in season 2. I suppose it's possible. There's this character, this super duper physicist named Wilbur. And Wilbur is this total and absolute lonely, sad sack simp for Jin, one of our lead scientist ladies. And he's always been friend zoned by Jin. And he's never said anything because he's too scared and everything else. Anyway, Wilbur has super duper deadly cancer. He's just got cancer all over the place. He's got about 4 months to live or something like that. And the entire arc of Wilbur is him being sad and dying and pining for Jin and saying nothing, and being sad and dying and pining for Jin and saying nothing to her about it. He doesn't contribute anything to the story at all until the 11th hour. And when he finally does, it doesn't mean anything. And I'm only bringing it up because the show really, really, really wants to make this important, make this really emotional beat for the whole thing. But he has absolutely nothing to do with pushing the story forward. Nothing. By the end of the series, or at least this first season, he is nothing but a prop. He's nothing but a minor plot point that could have been filled up by anybody or anything else, but he was there, and there you go. Anyway, so once the aliens have decided that humans are useless to them because they can lie, which makes no sense, they decide to reveal to Jin, and I'm just going to call him M, the guy that leads up the X-Files. They reveal to Jin and M through the headsets that somehow they can connect with directly from a million miles away, somehow, simultaneously. Well, that'll be explained momentarily. And the aliens tell them their plan. Like Ozymandias would say in Watchmen, unlike a Republic serial villain, he will reveal to you the entirety of his plan because the aliens know the humans can do nothing. And here's the aliens' plan. In their super duper advanced technology, they developed computers that are the size and function of a photon. Okay, let's just imagine this for a second. A computer the size of a photon. And they can send these computers the size of a photon at faster than light speeds anywhere they want. And they have direct instantaneous connection to any other photonic computer that they have on their end. So it's like a super duper tin can on the end of a string, right? And they have sent two of these super photonic computers to Earth. And they've been there, as of the show, for several months. They've just arrived after and been there for several months. And what can these super duper tiny computers do? They can go anywhere, effectively at any time, observe anything, and refer that information back to the aliens instantaneously. But not only that, they can also expand their size as far as to become an enveloping shroud around the entire planet Earth. Yes, an enveloping techno bubble Sirius shroud around the entire Earth. Just one of them can do this. And in order to show their power, in order to show humankind that they need to fear them, to take away any ambiguity as to their motives, they do this. They spread the entire Earth around with a shroud covering it. The entire sky is filled with this reflective techno sheen that also shows a giant open eyeball of light looking down on the Earth. It's like the Eye of Sauron, but it's around the Earth. And everybody on the planet sees this now. Suddenly, everything is covered by this supercomputer. And everyone's phone, every television station, everything is beaming out a message to the human race. You are bugs, and we are coming for you. That kind of thing, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you do this in the first place? If you could enshroud the Earth in such a way that would disrupt and or destroy all technological communication devices on the planet, who cares whether scientists are developing stuff to stop you? If we are suddenly plunged as a society and civilization and as a species back into the dark ages by disrupting every data source, every communications device, and so on and so forth, why wasn't that your first move? Why not do that from the beginning? What was the point of going through all the rigmarole of putting numbers in front of people's eyes or starting up a cult to support you in something you didn't need them for in the first place? Wait, the aliens in this show are practically omnipotent, as I said previous. And here's the problem with omnipotence in a story. Here's a problem with a villain or even a superhero. This is the problem that Doctor Strange ran into all the time in Marvel Comics and still does. When you don't have very limiting rules on magic and a character can do anything, then there is nothing to oppose them reasonably. You have to have very strict rules. And these aliens have no rules. They can send a photon across a particular individual's eyeballs to draw numbers when the photon knows that that individual is working on their science project. And then that photon can then influence that person to off themselves if they don't stop doing what they're doing. Why not just shut down all the electronics and just wipe their hard drives of the data? I mean, you can encircle the entire Earth with a supercomputer. You can disrupt any electronic device you want, as we see over and over again throughout the series. Why are they doing this? What is the point? It doesn't make any sense. And also, the fact that they deceived the cult as to what their intentions were means they know how to lie. It means they know how to lie. So what the heck was the whole revelation about? We don't know what lying is. It's absolute balderdash. But I'm sitting here watching this, going like, what? And the all-encompassing computer that covers the entire Earth and disrupts all communication and has a giant eye shining down on people, that lasts for about 2 minutes at the end of an episode, and we never see it again. It's all blue skies and puffy clouds after that. But now the humans know that the aliens can see and hear and record and know everything that they're doing at the exact same time that they're doing it because of their instantaneous communication between their photonic computers. This causes more than a few problems for our hero humans. But before I get to that, JB, thank you so much. Spills water on alien and it starts melting. Well, that was easy. Yeah. This is a bit like the opposite of signs, in the sense that these aliens are, as far as the show has shown us so far, effectively invulnerable. They can't be stopped. They can know everything at any time. Any plans made by the humans, they will know about, and they will be prepared for, conceivably, by the time they get here. Or they could just disrupt them. And this is the part that, again, I can't emphasize this enough. The show shows us that the aliens can disrupt anything electronic. Anything electronic. Their photonic computer thing can encircle the entire Earth or be as tiny as a photon and be everywhere all at once, seeing everything, and affect, in the physical realm, anything electronic. So why not sabotage every data source on the planet instantaneously? Why not knock down all communications networks? Why not just destroy the internet instantaneously? You would set the human species back hundreds of years, and you could just keep doing it because your little photonic computer is just there forever. You can know everything, you can disable everything, you can sabotage everything, and the stable planet in a stable orbit with a stable star will still be here after the human race has reduced itself back down to small little tribes without an ability to communicate or develop technologically, and you arrive in your big colony ships. Why not do that? The entire time I am asking this question after we find out about the photonic computers that can do anything, why not just cease the human race from advancing right now? Don't know. I honestly have no idea why they don't. Why are they bothering to play with their food? Also, why do they need this girl assassin named Tatiana, I think it was. Yes, Tatiana, I think. Anyway, just to get off the grand plot points for a second here, there is a moment in, I think it's the penultimate episode, I think it's the next to last episode, or maybe it's in the last episode, where our total betrayer of humanity, Chinese physicist lady, Keiko O'Brien, for reasons that aren't really explained in the story or the show, but anyway, she decides to travel back to Beijing in China, or outer parts thereof, go back to the now rusted and falling apart radio telescope that she used to work at, out of sentiment, I suppose. Just why not? And she shows up on the top of this mountain. She's standing there and she's getting ready to delete herself by jumping off a cliff. And then all of a sudden, Tatiana shows up, the alien-backed human super assassin who has super strength for reasons that are never explained and cannot be caught on camera for reasons that are never explained, and who can hold a full-grown man up against a window to the point where the window is cracking, and yet nobody on the outside of the building can see the window cracking as this is going on because aliens, I guess. Anyway, she decides that she's going to delete herself. Tatiana is there to see that she is deleted because she's an assassin. And then they have this, I don't know what do you want to call it, some kind of touching moment where she's like, I just want to see one last sunrise or sunset before this, that, and the other. And Tatiana's like, oh, yes, you're going to a better place. Everything is part of the plan. And like, I completely abhor both of your characters. The one lady doomed humanity to either massive, destruction or enslavement potentially. And the other one is some Looney Tunes cultish super assassin who just has murdered innocent people left, right, and center. And they craft this, what's supposed to be some kind of touching moment between the two of them, looking at the sunrise, camera behind them, their silhouettes coming at us. I'm like, I hope you both just poof. I was hoping, honestly, that the great betrayer was going to give Tatiana a hug and then shove them both off the edge of the cliff together, sort of in a Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty way. I thought that would be kind of cool. That didn't happen. So there you go. I'm supposed to have sympathy for the betrayer of humanity. I don't. I just don't. It's like, okay, you were a useless person and you got what you deserved, I suppose. Anyway, so that happened. And then we have the big project, or the first big project, not the project they should be working on, but the first big project. So they want to try to intercept the alien armada before it shows up, right? But the alien armada is out 400 years away, traveling at 1 point something or 0.1% or whatever of the speed of light, which for humankind is effectively impossible to send an object at that speed without it, basically disintegrating or something, or breaking the laws of physics or whatever. Again, English major, not physicist here. But they've come up with a plan. Oh, they got a plan. They're going to do a multi-stage wave formation thingy using nuclear bombs in space to progressively speed up a capsule with a giant solar or radiation sail on it that is going to then speed up to meet or intercept the fleet before they get to Earth. So we'll meet them in 200 years after they've traveled 200 years, and we'll meet in the middle. That's the idea. Well, they need 1,000 nuclear weapons in order to do this. 1,000 nuclear weapons. Boy, oh boy, that's got to be a really difficult number to achieve when you have a total global threat coming down. Apparently, they can only get their hands on 300. Yeah, 300 really? That's it. Of all the countries on the planet that now understand the threat, when you have a giant eye in the sky looking down on you and you know that you're not alone in the universe, and by the way, they're not here to make nice, they can only get their hands on 300 of these things? Apparently so. Thank you, Alan Thyler. Holy cats, it's very generous of you, Alan. Thank you so much for the #1 samurai Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wow-wee! Wow! Wow!
That was a drunken Uncle Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. It's very generous of you. Hope you're having a good evening and hope you are enjoying the show, such as it is. Okay, so anyway, they can only get 300 nuclear bombs. They need 1,000 to get this thing up to speed. And what is this thing going to be? Well, it's going to be a capsule. What's going to be in the capsule? A person. A person? Well, how could they get a person into this capsule? How could they send them through 1,000 nuclear bombs without radiation absolutely devastating them? Or anything else. And how are they going to survive 200-year trip? Oh, well, we're going to freeze them, you see, because on top of having super state-of-the-art nanofibers, which are going to make up the sail that's going to catch the radiation waves, some guy that we've never met before, had never appeared in the series prior, has also developed a super-duper, perfect, effective stasis cryogenic pod that can freeze you forever, and you wake up within 10 seconds of it being turned off, and you're perfectly fine. In fact, it's so good, it makes a test chimp more intelligent than a 17-year-old Gen Zer. I'm being a little bit facetious, but that's kind of what the show portrays. You have this very, very obviously CGI'd little chimp doing little logic problems and understanding English from a scientist in a way that I don't think that's how chimps work, but maybe that's just a super duper effect of the freezing machine. Anyway, so they're going to send a probe with a person to intercept the alien race as a ambassador, as a spy, what exactly? And remember, the aliens can see everything that they are doing here, every discussion that they have, every plan that they draw up, every diagram, every simulation, they can see it. So none of this is secret to the aliens. Let's just hold on to that thought for a minute. Anyway, so now that they only have 300 nuclear devices instead of 1,000, they need to make the package that is being shipped through this process much, much, much smaller. And so they're like, well, we can't send a whole person. We have to send somebody that is only a brain. Only their brain can go. We're going to send their brain. We're going to keep their brain alive through the stasis pod thing. But we need someone. We need someone who's brilliant. And we need someone who'll understand things. And we need someone who can communicate with them or be enticing to them to bring on board so that maybe we can, send them with some kind of thought or some kind of plan or something to sabotage them or something. Who would do that? And who also could be so brilliant, but also just be this far on the edge of death. Oh, Wilbur! That's right, that character that's been absolutely pointless through this entire series, except to be sad and mopey. And boy, oh boy, I wish the girl I love would pay attention to me. Maybe if I buy her a $20 million star, she'll finally love me. And that is actually a plot point. I'm not going to explain it. It's not even worth explaining. Anyway, so they go to Wilbur, the scientist, the physicist. That's been just Mr. Mopey the whole time. And they're like, hey, you want to help save humanity? And like, well, I got nothing better going on and I'm dying anyway, so why not? And so we go through this long, drawn out, just maudlin soap opera. Oh, will he, won't he, will he, won't he, to push the final button to start the euthanasia process. And of course, eventually he does. And he does so just before Jin, who's finally realized she's the smartest woman on the planet, but she just doesn't understand people. She has no idea that Wilbur's been pining for her for years because she's an idiot. Anyway, she's running to the hospital trying to get there before he makes his big decision, because somehow now cell phones don't exist and you can't call ahead and say, wait until I get there. No, she's just running down the street, but it's too late. He's already hit the final button. He's been taken off to surgery and his brain's been removed. And now he's in this canister. And now they're all ready with a rocket ship specially made for this. And it's all been done within like a month, because we heard that Wilbur only had like 4 to 6 months or something to live at the beginning of this series. And some time has passed and he's gotten literally to his deathbed at this point. So at least 4 months have passed. But a super duper rocket to send his cryogenically frozen brain into space with the 300 nuclear warheads that have already been somehow aligned in order in space to propel this thing forward. It's already all done, guys. It's already ready to go. So they load Wilbur up into his rocket ship. They light off the rocket ship, and like an Elon Musk SpaceX launch, I'm thinking, okay, they can't have it blow up, right? They can't have it blow up on the launch pad. There's got to be some fake suspense up into the point where it works, but then it doesn't. We can't have this actually work, right? Because it just doesn't make any sense. Even for this show, you got to be kidding me. 300 nuclear bombs on such an exact, precise process of lighting them off and having this thing catch the wave perfectly every time. That's, even Benioff and Weiss can't be that perfect, right? Can't be like that. And it's not. It's not. We see this thing get jetted forward 2 or 3 times with nuclear bombs that obviously the radiation is and the blast wave, and none of that stuff's going to affect the craft, guys. It just doesn't. But 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, it's going nearly 80 kilometers a second. They've got it going so fast, and then suddenly one of the tethers between the capsule and the radiation sail snaps, and the whole thing falls apart. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm fine with something going wrong, but they didn't have any redundancies. One cable snaps and the whole thing falls apart? Really? Okay. So then Wilbur's great odyssey off into 200 years of cryogenic stasis, off to meet the aliens and be accepted by the aliens, where they'll build him a new body or turn him into a pet or something. It just ends and he goes off course and he veers off into the vastness of space, forever to be in a sort of comatose, not alive, not dead state, forever, I guess, until season 2, where he's picked up by a, benevolent race or something and turned into Superman or whatever. I don't know. But I'm just thinking, wow, great. That was really worth all the buildup for Wilbur, the most useless character in this show. Maybe one of the most useless characters in this show. Okay, so now we get to the big problem. Now, let me ask you something. And I know it's a crazy idea. If you know that aliens who are intending to invade, conquer, or at least not be nice to you in 400 years, that your descendants, the entire planet, is going to be overtaken in 400 years, and they have the greatest advantage in the world you can possibly think of. They can see and hear and observe anything at any time anyone is doing, because they have photonic computers that can travel around the Earth faster than light, looking at everything, zeroing in on anything at any time, etc. If you knew there was a perfect spy watching you at every moment in time, what should your first priority be? I'd like to take you back to a little show called Get Smart. And there was something in Get Smart called the Cone of Silence. The Cone of Silence. Okay, this is not a new concept. But the Cone of Silence, while also a gag in the show, would be this thing or this room or this device that would descend upon 2 people or more trying to have a conversation in a way that nobody else outside of it could hear. That communication could be absolutely confidential and no one could listen in. And it's a crazy idea, but what if you had all these brilliant minds around the world that are still alive, the ones that haven't deleted themselves or haven't been, taken out by X-Files guys? Why don't you have sort of a Manhattan Project? Because obviously the aliens aren't going to be disabling all electronics and communications, because that'd be the first thing I'd do. But anyway, they're not doing that. So why don't you come up with an idea of creating a room or a capsule or a chamber or something that was photon proof? What if you did that? What if you created something where the photonic computer could not penetrate, where you could have a private conversation between just two people, just to share information where it's not being seen by anybody, can't be observed by the aliens. There doesn't have to be any written down record. You just have to exchange information private between two people away from alien eyes. Wouldn't that be the first priority? Because here's what happens. The United Nations, in their, I got to say, the United Nations of this universe is probably the most efficient, body we've ever seen, called the United Nations. They decide they need to beat the aliens at their own game because they have deduced somehow, some way, they just know it, I suppose, that the one thing the aliens cannot observe is human thought. They cannot read minds, we assume. I don't know how they achieved this notion. I can't remember if there was something in the show that proved the aliens could not know what someone was thinking in some way, shape, or form. But okay, we're going to go on the premise that the aliens can see everything, hear everything, read everything, hack into every system except the human mind. Okay. So the UN, in all its brilliance, decides they're going to nominate and dedicate three people as the super soldiers for the future. And what do these three people do? Well, they're called wall facers, which is apparently a reference to a Buddhist tradition. But basically, these are three people who are selected for their brilliance, their genius, or whatever else, who are essentially the most privileged people on the planet. They can request anything of anyone at any time on the planet, and they will not be denied by matter of international law. They are allowed access to all resources, all personnel, in the pursuit of what? Well, here's what they're going to do, guys. These three people, within their own mind palaces, are thus charged and empowered to create plans against the aliens that nobody else can read. Since they can't read their minds, it'll only be in their heads. They are to plan in their heads ways in which to defeat the aliens, and they have every resource on the planet to achieve this, whatever they want to do at any time, whatever. Wow. That's an incredible place to be. That's an incredible responsibility to imagine up a plan against the aliens that they can't know about. Well, how would you how the hell would you affect such a plan? I thought about this. I really did. I thought about it for a second. Like, okay, let's just say I'm Sherlock Holmes and I have my perfect mind palace, right? And I'm building in my mind the machine to save the world. Whatever it is. It's a widget machine, whatever. Okay, so how would I do this to fool the aliens? Well, I'd have to have all the schematics locked in my mind. I can't write them down. I can't make any notes. I can't ask anybody about it. I can't use a chalkboard or a whiteboard to make a diagram or to try to figure out a problem, engineering or otherwise. I can't do that because the aliens will see it. So it all has to be in my head. But let's say I can have a perfect diagram of this thing in my head. All the components, all the parts, everything that I'll need. It's just in my mind palace. How would I create this thing? Well, I suppose I'd have to break down the machine in my mind into all its individual components. And then I'd have to use my powers as a wall facer with unlimited resources to order the parts that I need. But I can't order them by themselves because then the aliens would know that because I'm, going on Amazon or whatever and making an order and they can see that. So I'd have to order like multiple random pieces of stuff mixed in within the thing I actually need, right? So I get an order for spark plugs and car batteries and screws and all this stuff. But only one thing out of the 5 is the thing I actually need. I put those in a corner. And then I order another batch of stuff over here. And eventually I have just a hoarder's level of stuff built up in my apartment where I'm making this machine in my mind with no schematics and no plans and nothing. I've talked to nobody, asked nobody for any advice on how to do it because I'm a physicist, not an engineer. So, but I'll get it down. And then I'd have to start building this thing at some point, right? I can't have anybody else do it. I can't instruct them on what to make, right? I can't sort of give away the game to the aliens who are watching everything that I can do. So then I have to start putting it together. And I'm putting it together in my apartment, bit by bit, piece by piece. Now, the aliens can see me doing this. right? And so eventually, if they can know what I ordered, if they can read the description of what these things are, if they can know what the components do, as I'm assembling them at some point, they're going to figure out what I'm making. And they'll know it, and they can just disrupt it electronically, as they've shown us they can do with everything else, and the game's up. And remember, I can't tell anybody what I'm doing. I can't write it down. I can't communicate it. And if I happen to be deleted, if I happen to, just by natural causes, go away, even if I had the absolute perfect solution to solve the alien problem, it goes with me. Now, you tell me, should the first priority of humanity be to create a photonic computer-proof room or not? I ask you. Because if you're going to have people who are not going to be doing anything other than thinking about a problem, unable to communicate their thoughts to anyone else for the rest of their lives, short or long, what is the point of a wall facer? I don't know. I don't know. But that is the conundrum. That is the end-all be-all of this show. You have omnipotent, nigh-on omniscient aliens who can destroy human communication at whim, but don't do it, who could conceivably just shut off people's brains with their little photonic computer going inside somebody's head and expanding just a little bit to give them an aneurysm, but they don't do that. They have a on-the-ground assassin for reasons that don't make any sense. And then you have these individuals dedicated to thinking up solutions to the problem who can't talk to anybody about it and can't write it down. And that is the three-body problem in a nutshell. It might not be one of the most frustrating shows I've ever watched, but it's up there because the obvious solutions to both the aliens and humans problems never either being addressed or attempted by characters who we are supposed to believe are super duper smart and crafty and clever and so on, just it made the whole, you want to talk about suspending one's disbelief? Yeah, there's not a nanofiber strong enough to suspend my disbelief for this show. So there's my rant. Went on for about an hour. That's how you do. I'll take a look at anything you guys want to add here before I wrap up, as I'm probably going to lose my voice here sooner or later. Angelverse, how do you defeat something that you haven't encountered and know nothing about? Well, the only information that they have about the aliens is the information the aliens has told them. Now, if you truly believe that these aliens have no reason to lie and don't even know what lying is, then I suppose you can just proceed on that basis. Because, yeah, the only source of the information on the aliens is what the aliens have said. And therein lies, there's an even more fundamental problem, right? But of course, the aliens have demonstrated something of the powers they possess. So we know a little bit about them, I guess. But otherwise, everything else is just a trust me story of the marauding, conquering aliens. Let's see. USP, you order a finished product that contains the component you need. Well, yeah, but eventually I'd have to remove that component and then put it into my machine, which the aliens can be seeing me doing the whole time. I mean, eventually I'm going to have to build this thing, and the aliens are going to figure out what it is. You know. Or if they don't know what it is, if they can't tell what the components are, they can relay that information to any of their cult members, and they can do it. Because there's a cult, even after the main cult gets destroyed in a very creative / gory way. I won't go into it for the sake of YouTube, but it's very, very gory, very morally questionable how they do this and why they do this and how it even works. How do you destroy an entire ship full of people in order to retrieve one little hard drive without destroying that hard drive in the process? Well, they did it. It's not even worth talking about at this point. Although the effect was kind of cool. Let's see. Bridget. I looked up a summary of the other books. This gets really stupid. See, okay, and again, as I said at the top of the show, I have not read the books. For all I know, the books are really, really good and make a lot more sense. This adaptation, thus far to me, is absolutely stupid. And so for anybody who's actually read the books and has also watched the Netflix version of this series, I realize there is a Chinese production of this same story, and I don't know how it goes. I haven't watched it. But anybody who's read the books and seen the Netflix production, I'm really hoping this is not an accurate reflection of the books, because that would be sad. That'd be very sad. Let's see. Bold sign, would a rubberized room work to protect from photons? See, I don't know. I don't know if it's something as simple as making a lead-lined room. I don't know. I mean, first off, the idea that you could have a photonic computer that can draw numbers onto people's eyeballs and all this other stuff, while at the same time also circling the Earth over and over again, it just that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But let's just say that it is the size of a photon and operates effectively on the same level as a photon. What would you need to block a photon in order to create a private room to have a conversation? I don't know. Can photons effectively penetrate lead? I don't know. Someone else would have to tell me. Someone knows more about science than I do would have to tell me. You're ridiculous, lunatic. Gamma radiation is useful. We just haven't figured out how to use it in a good way yet. Sure. Yeah, and I'm fine with science fiction, making certain leaps of logic and things. And I mean, that's what science fiction is all about. I probably would have preferred it if they'd said it somewhere later than 2024 to at least give us a little bit of insulatory room for some of these developments to have happened within, reason or something of human timelines. But anyway, that's a bit beside the point. Bridget, the rocket thing goes down the same way except cancer guy in Chinese. Okay. I mean, sure. And maybe if they'd made that character do something else, but other than just being sad and pining away for what's her name for the entire show and just looking sad, maybe there'd be if he contributed something somewhere to the entire situation. But in this instance, he didn't. I don't know if that's true for the book. Ultranaut. On the quantum level, the number of photons penetrating a solid medium is essentially a game of statistics. There's always some non-zero number that gets through. Okay, well, I guess the question is, they'd have to create something that could block out photons and then test to see what are their chances of having a conversation that will prevent that thing from getting through. I guess it'd still be a gamble, but it'd be a heck of a lot better than just doing everything out in the open. So I don't know. Gamer Valence, Scribelight. My guy read the books a few times. He quit the show in about 20 minutes. It is from the two idiots that ran Game of Thrones in the garden. Yes, I mentioned Benioff and Weiss at the beginning of the stream and how this is my first experience with them in producing a show because I did not watch Game of Thrones. Never did watch a single episode of Game of Thrones, but I weep for all the Game of Thrones fans who were disappointed and outraged by the end of Game of Thrones because over the last several years, I have joined in amongst many of my nerdy brethren in watching our favorite franchises be destroyed by people that do not care about the canon or the intellectual property that they're being put in charge of. So I was curious to see, all right, let's take on an IP I know nothing about. Let's watch something that I have no other experience than the reference of the title. And boy, in the sense that I needed to be confirmed to me, have confirmed to me that Benioff and Weiss don't know what they're doing, I was not disappointed in that regard. Let's see. Jonathan Ferry, did you hear about the murders involved in the Netflix production? No, but I should probably pass that on to one of my true crime friends. I could probably do a video on that. That'd probably get them some clicks. I'll have to look that one up. You're ridiculous. Photons, I think, maybe more than we have figured out this far. Neutrons are where the weird shot happens. Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine because I'm an English major, not a physics major. Either way, that is my rant/review of the three-body problem or three-body problem. If they take the off, does it change things? Absolutely ridiculous show. Made absolutely no sense for a show that so leans on science and reason and problem solving and so on. It actively ignored its own problems and actively ignored logic in the progression of the story, the utility of the characters, and the chain of events. So if you want a little bit of masochism for the brain, I can highly recommend a three-body problem. Otherwise, watch Breaking Bad again. I'm doing that right now, actually, and it really reminds me what good storytelling is, and then to watch Three Body Problem in between, it makes me miss the old days. Anyway, if I missed a comment that you had on here, please leave it below after the series. The stream is posted. Also, please again take a look at the top of the chat box for the link to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society donation page. I'd appreciate it if you consider donating and or sharing that out on the socials. Also, if you haven't already, and I can assume that maybe some of you haven't, I have a Discord server where people hang out and just kind of talk. Right? So stuff happens. We talk to each other. Things happen. There's a link to the Discord server in the chat right now. If you click on that, you'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you actually watch the stream, are not a bot or conceivably a photonic computer, and have earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is Jonathan Price. Jonathan Price. Say hello, Jonathan Price, and I'll know that you actually watched the show. Because, man, of everybody in this show, I'm like, oh, Jonathan Price. I hope you got a good paycheck for this one. I bet he did. I bet he did. Either way, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this ambush stream. I'll be doing another stream on Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a thing. Not this thing, some other thing, but a thing all the same. Other than that, everyone, have a good rest of your Friday night. Have a good weekend ahead of you. Moderators, I'm getting all mixed up from having talked about this stuff for so long. Moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the donation link at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Really appreciate it. Hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.